Hello, everyone. This is Learneezee Cast, episode 8. We're recording today on December 4th, 2020. Hey, Rico, how you doing?
Hey Pat, I'm actually on the road to recovery. I'm actually doing pretty well now.
Oh, good. We can start on that. What's on your mind? Our first segment. Tell us, Rico, what's on your mind after recovering from
Yeah,
having COVID-19?
yeah. I was really, just kind of not shocked, but I guess just caught off guard that I got infected with COVID. Unfortunately, I had a family member pass away. I was invited to the funeral to be a pallbearer, and I went, wore a mask, but I guess somewhat foolishly decided that it was okay to have dinner at a relative's house
Wow.
where we obviously weren't wearing masks and ended up getting infected along with others, not even knowing that I was infected, not knowing that others were infected. And so
Wow.
started to feel the ill effects probably almost a full week later, like 6 or 7 days later. And it got to the point where
Hmm.
uh, I feel like I had flu-like symptoms. I had a sore throat. I had a body ache. I might have even had a fever, but I couldn't find my thermometer when I felt the worst. But overall, my symptoms were pretty mild. I mean, maybe moderate. I don't really know what the distinction is there.
Understood.
But
Understood.
luckily,
Uh,
yeah,
uh,
luckily made a pretty full recovery. But I decided to get tested once I found out my some family members got tested positive, and I came out positive.
wow.
So I've been quarantining in my basement uh, since then, and I hope to be able to leave quarantine after the 14 days. I think the CDC now says 10 days is enough after your symptoms kind of subside.
Hmm.
But I think it just goes to show that we certainly can't just think that this is just going away on its own, or that we're
Hmm.
going to be immune if we just wear masks. You have to really, really be careful. And if you're associating with people outside of your own household, you run the risk of getting infected. And so I think it's just really, really important that people take precautions, take care, and don't put yourself at unnecessary risk. And it's unfortunate, right? We've missed many important events. I mean, Thanksgiving as an example. I spent Thanksgiving by myself in the
Oh, that
basement.
sounds horrible. Yeah.
I mean, my wife, who's Colombian, cooked up this amazing Thanksgiving meal. She was surprised. I was surprised, but it was delicious. So I've been eating turkey and the fixings for the last few days. So it's
I
been
got you.
great.
Okay. Oh, wow. So, but you were lucky to be able to separate yourself from your wife, stay in the basement of your home. Yeah, not
Yeah,
everyone is that lucky.
yeah. I'm
But
lucky enough to have two floors in my house, and
yeah,
so my wife and her parents who are living with us,
yeah.
all tested negative. So it's just crazy how, you know, the virus can be spread, and you just got to really make sure you're taking precautions. But I'm
But
hopeful.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. What about this idea, the news that came out that looks like we're going to have a vaccine soon? What do you think about that? Is that something we should trust, or like I'm in Europe, and the regulations are a little bit stricter than in the U.S. I believe it's Pfizer that's come up with a vaccine, also another company called Moderna, and they basically are racing to get it out there. Do you see some light at the end of the tunnel from your side when it comes to some folks getting this vaccine next year, early next year?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's if it's not light at the end of the tunnel, at the very least, it's some inspiration to keep us all inspired and hopeful for a better tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah,
I think the issues, of course, when it comes to the vaccine is how readily available is it going to be. I know the Pfizer vaccine needs to be kept at ultra cold temperatures. I think the Moderna vaccine is not quite as sub zero, whatever. But I think the real issue is even more so than just getting the vaccine, is it convincing people to actually take it. And what I've read is that there are just so many people who are just anti-vaxxers. They don't believe in vaccine. They believe in these conspiracies that the government, uh, conspiracy that they're trying to implant some sort of like tracking device or some kind of mind control, or and
yeah. It's
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 just crazy.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that. It's also part and parcel of what Donald Trump has. I shall not say his name. I'm sorry, but it's been part
The
of
former
the.
TV show host, who is now having to take his own advice. You're fired.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly, exactly.
yeah, you know, I think that unfortunately, just the lack of leadership under his administration has led to, I think, this more polarized nation that I live in.
Yeah,
And you know, the United States, I think, for many people, was always held in high esteem as kind of a nation to look up to.
yeah,
But I think the reality is our own dirty laundry and our own issues, internal issues, are coming to light, and it's just we're no longer, I think, a country that people can really look up to. I mean, throughout our history, there's been a lot of issues that are not obviously widely reported about the dirty deeds that we do as a country. And I think that Trump, you know, he just is able to get his followers to believe whatever he says, regardless of any lack of or any real proof or any real validity to what he says, you know. And I sort of like liken it to
yeah,
you know, these lemmings, you know,
yeah,
that these lemmings that just run and jump off a cliff and ultimately perish because they fall to their death. I sort of feel that that's kind of what Donald Trump does with his followers. You know, he
yeah,
just basically sends them running in a direction. Oh, you know, fake news, the
yeah,
election fraud, and you know, now with the vaccine, it's like, oh, I'm not going to take the vaccine because Donald Trump says it's whatever. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I'm not even sure what he said about the vaccine. But my point is,
yeah.
what he says is believed by it looks like half of the country. You know, so at least
Yeah,
half of the country. So
exactly, Rico. Yeah, they've been kind of brainwashed, probably like in the Matrix, right? They've taken that blue pill and, like you said, has started running um, to that cliff. Yeah, but I'm not going to let that, control me. I just hope your family members and my family members listen to reason and understand that as long as we want this pandemic to be controlled, we will eventually need to all reach herd immunity, and herd immunity in this case would be through vaccination. You know.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
And so I mean, you count me in. I mean, the minute
yeah,
it's made available, I know that
yeah,
the you know, the most vulnerable, including elderly living in
yeah,
retirement homes and assisted living facilities, as well as the frontline workers, right? You know, the nurses and physicians who are taking care of those that are already infected with COVID should be getting the vaccine first.
yep,
But I think, you know, after that, I think teachers as well probably need to be in line. I mean, they're the ones who are still working with a lot of people
yep.
in a group setting. So hopefully, you know, hopefully the vaccine can come out soon and get it into the people who get it to the people. We can get it to the people who need it.
Yep, I totally agree. Yep. So let's move on to another segment that we'd like to start up with our audience. We are always testing out new segments, and we're calling this one "What's Life Really Like?" And in this case, we were trying to figure out, okay, how's life where you are, Rico, and where I am when it comes to getting help to starving artists right now during the pandemic. And we came across an interesting story. Rico, can you tell the audience a little bit about that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to kind of, you know, just follow up with what you said. I think we want, you know, our listeners to understand, you know, what are the differences of
Hmm.
life in the US versus life in Europe. I think because of all this discussion with the political situation in this country and people not really understanding the different forms of government. So
Yeah.
this is our first foray into discussing what life is like in different locations. And so, yeah, I wanted to just talk about
Hmm.
this Asian American artist, Guy Stanley Philoche, who is Haitian American, and you know, he's a very successful artist. His artwork has sold for six figures, and if you look up his art online, it's definitely going to cost a pretty penny. In fact, I was a little disappointed I couldn't find art that was affordable for me, but I don't exactly have $60,000 lying around to beautify my home. But
So, so Guy, please, if you listen to this podcast, help us out. We're trying
correct.
to support you, so you can support other artists.
But so what he does, you know, I was reading an article on him, and we'll link to the articles in the show notes. But ultimately, you know, he was, you know, contemplating buying a Rolex, right, a $15,000 watch, which for most people is unattainable at best, and just a pipe dream, for most. And he really started to realize, though, that he was very fortunate to be in the situation that he was in. And he was really thinking about, well, how can I support others, right? In our country, the social net, government assistance in regards to stimulus checks and other things have been running out. The unemployment situation is become very dire.
Yeah,
And so he started to support artists by buying works of art for emerging artists, not already established artists, but emerging
exactly.
artists who was looking to buy pieces of artwork between $300 and $500, I believe. So
Hmm.
really helped them start their careers in regards to selling their art. And he said he only buys what he likes. He's not just sort of like Oprah Winfrey, just I'm buying your art. I'm buying your art. I'm buying
Exactly.
everyone's art. He's really trying to support emerging artists,
Yes.
and by contributing to these artists, he's really helping them out. And he's also been able to inspire other people to help him in his mission of supporting art. And I think this really speaks to the larger issue
Yes.
about differences in the way that artists are supported in the United States, or lack of support, and really looked at in many ways as not a true profession in the way that it probably should be, and it certainly is in other places.
And that's where we can do a little bit of a comparison, because in Germany, the Bundestag, the German parliament, in a sense, has um, decided, especially a directive that comes from, I would believe, Angela Merkel, in that sense, that artists should be supported, and it's not a total blank check situation, but at the same time, the minimum that the artists are getting sometimes can be way above what they earned the year before, or during the same period. And this is happening for all of Germany, to be honest. And that kind of support would allow artists to continue to do their work while they isolate and hopefully survive the pandemic. And in fact, the job situation in general is very difficult right now for many professions, especially in the restaurant and entertainment industry. And the German government has decided to support all types of uh, people and workers in these industries with a minimum stipend. Yeah, and so we'll be able to say that the difference is the German government is really supporting from the top down these artists and these workers, and in the U.S. it comes maybe on a state by state basis because of, unfortunately, the lack of leadership on the federal level, right? Yeah, it's sad.
It's just a difference in philosophy, and I
Yeah.
think that, unfortunately, if you're not somebody who just wants to live the sort of normal 9 to 5 life, working for a company that's going to provide you with insurance, where you don't have a chance to practice your craft, to show your talents, you're sort of left to your own devices and really forced to be the starving artist to eke out an existence. And that's unfortunate. I think that we all benefit from art.
Yeah.
And for anybody who questions the notion that artists shouldn't be supported, I think you really need to question why you even hold that belief. And I think that,
Mhm.
it's great to see. I think, again, anytime, you expect others to help you out, it's just, in the United States, that's like a red flag. Like, to ask for help was it's like a dirty word almost, and I think that it's great to see a guy like Guy Stanley Philoche really taking the leadership and taking the reins on supporting other artists, because unfortunately in the United States, the federal government certainly isn't doing enough on that front.
All right.
And
So that's the end of our segment here. So now we'll cut to our experts corner, and I think you'll like that interview. So let's go to that.
welcome to our interview segment in our podcast, which we call our Experts Corner. And today we're going to be interviewing Lazaros Keskinidis, who is a German and Greek teacher, as well as a licensed TELC oral examiner. As a passionate polyglot, helping other students who want to learn a new language is his top priority. He achieves this from his experience teaching and learning as a student himself, having studied German, Greek, English, Chinese, and Hindi. So far, he has taught 4 of these languages in 4 countries over the last 7 years, and has received remarkable feedback from all of his students. According to Lazaros, the key to success is paying attention to the individual needs of the learner, and he is really dedicated to helping students in whatever way possible. Games, digital audio workstation-based audio training, as well as self-created practice sheets will give students a modern, unconventional learning experience with a focus on the requirements and success, no matter what their goals are. So welcome, Lazaros, to the Learneezee cast. How are you today?
Hello, I'm good. Thanks a lot. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to do the interview with you.
Great. Well, let's jump right in. So just the first question we have for you is, what are the keys to learning a language?
First of all, it's of course hard work. You need to work. Everyone who tells you that you can do it without work or learn it in such a fast pace, it's not the truth. You need to work, and you need to be interested in the language itself and in the culture that surrounds the language.
Oh, very nice, Lazaros. On, can you give a couple of specific methods that you think that are really, high quality, very good for students to focus on?
Mhm. Well, first of all, I will say that if you using a dictionary, use always a paper dictionary. Don't use an app or don't use the Google Translator. Use a paper dictionary because the amount of work you put in to find a word, it helps you really remembering the word. So it's more work that you put in, but the outcome it's going to be much more fruitful. And a second method that I say is if you start to learn a new language and you have the possibility, learn two languages at once. For example, if you learn Hindi, learn the Urdu alphabet and learn Urdu with it. If you learn Chinese, learn the traditional and the simplified characters. It sounds like it's too much work and too much effort, but it's really not. You will get used to it really quickly. And once you got used to it, you can't even imagine going back to another way. And it's going to be so much more fruitful and the results will be so much better.
That's very interesting. It almost sounds counter to what many people would recommend, but you're saying that by learning two languages simultaneously, it can actually produce better results.
Yes, and of course they have to be similar in one way or another, but it will help you really to memorize the stuff better. For example, in Hindi, if you speak Hindi or you learn Hindi, you always have the words from the Sanskrit, and you will have the words from Urdu, which come from Arabic and Persian language. So, for example, thank you, it's dhanyavad in Hindi, but shukriya in Urdu. So, you will hear shukriya much more often in India itself. Learn both, you'll be great, and learn both writings with the Arabic script and the Devanagari script. It's gonna help you a lot.
Okay, Lazarus. So you spoke about needing to have an interest to learn a language, and so that kind of leads into my next question. What are the motivations to learning a language, and can you motivate yourself to learn a language? Is that possible to find a way to motivate yourself to learn a language?
Yes, it's possible. And most of the times people start out with having already a motivation. For example, when I was studying Chinese, the professor asked us, why do you want to learn Chinese? And a lot of the male students were saying, because I watched a lot of Kung Fu movies and I wanted to understand what they say and read the characters, so that's why I'm here now. If you learn it just for the job or you want to make money with it, then it's obviously a bit harder because there you need to find the motivation. So if you don't have an interest in the beginning, so you start to learn a language, have to and want to as two separate things. To find a way to motivate you, obviously the best thing in real life, it's maybe for a girlfriend or something. This can really motivate you to learn a language and to express yourself, what you're feeling and you want to say.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that, finding something that you already love, whatever that is, and using that as a way to motivate yourself on learning a new language can be very, very fruitful, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. For example, let's say you're interested in cooking and eating. So every country has obviously its own recipes and its own eating culture. So there you can learn a lot about language and its culture with trying out different dishes, look up the spices, what they're doing. There is a lot of history behind that. So this is just one example. Obviously, if you like music, listen to the songs you like, try to understand the lyrics, maybe write your own lyrics itself. So for composing music, a different language can be also very useful to express your love for another country or something like this. So the base where the interest comes from is not limited. It's certainly unlimited. Everything that can interest someone can also motivate him to learn a language. And this is the base to learn a new language, in my opinion.
Interesting. And what got you interested in learning Chinese and Hindi, Lazarus? Was that, did that come from the food, the culture, the girlfriend?
Well, you know, my sister was living in China,
Yeah.
and I just came out from my evening school where I made my Abitur,
Yeah.
and I studied Latin in Abitur.
Okay.
So I made my Latin exam, but when I started to reach a level where I mean, obviously my teacher was really impressed and he was like, hey, you need to study Latin, go to university into Latin. But when I started to practicing for the final examination, I wrote lyrics myself
Oh,
in
interesting.
Latin. So I passed them to him to correct them or to check it out if something's wrong or right. And he always kept saying, you're wasting your time, just practice translation. It's the most important thing. So I thought to myself, I don't want to be stuck in an office where I only translate 2,000-year-old text. I want to create something myself with a new language. So that's why I decided not to go for Latin, but to go for another language.
Yeah.
And his suggestions was go for Italian, Romanian, Spanish, because you know Latin already, it will be easier. But I wanted something completely new. And since my sister was living in China and I love so many aspects of China, I stick with Chinese, you know.
Oh, cool. Oh, very nice.
Mhm.
And so,
Yep.
do you want me to ask a question?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, next
um,
one.
so you've spoken a lot about the process for the learner, the student, and even your own reasons as to why you were wanting to learn new languages. But what is important, for the teacher? If you're teaching languages, what's important to keep in mind? Do you think, as someone who's taught, and for others who are teaching, what do you want to keep in your mind for the important aspects of teaching a foreign language?
Mhm. To teach a foreign language, you first of all, it's like to teach with everything you teach. You need to check out and to understand the individual needs from the student, because every student is different. Every student needs another process. And very important, and many teachers don't agree with me, look what his aim is and what he really requires. If someone wants to study engineering and he doesn't need the language, or he does just need it until B1, just bring him to B1, to the level B1. Don't look for him to understand Goethe or Schiller or whatever, because it's a waste of time for you and for him. First, look what he's individually, where his strengths are, and try to focus your teaching on him. Second, look what his goals are and try to adapt your teaching to his goals and not overdo it. Otherwise, the student might get frustrated, it's too much for him, he will lose interest. Really keep it down to the actual needs of the student.
So I really enjoy that, and myself, I really agree with that, because I think when you take the time to get to know your students, especially when it's a one-on-one environment, I think they're more engaged because they realize that you are really taking an interest in the goals that he or she may have, what they want to get out of it. So I definitely agree with that process for sure.
Yeah, that sounds
And
like an excellent uh, line of thinking. But I'd like to also ask you, Lazo, so what makes you unique as a teacher? Like, what are your personal strengths in terms of the strategy you use to help students in general? Like, what techniques are yours? I don't want you to give away the secret sauce, but just
oh no,
some ideas.
first of all, I would say intercultural competence is important. It's often seen as a soft skill, but I think it's really a hard skill, because to be able to understand where these people come from, what background they have, and what the mindset is of the people coming from the part of the world they are coming. I mean, I have had students from over 100 countries so far. And some things I see at all the students who come from a certain country are the same, so need to adapt to them and be patient, of course, and really don't think that you are the most important thing. Your student is the most important thing as a teacher. Because in Greek school, when I was a kid, I mean, it's 30 years ago, the teacher was allowed to hit us, to beat us if we hadn't the homework and stuff. So it wasn't really not, I could never do something like this with my students, you know, just because he forgot to write Straße with sharp S and instead he wrote it with double S or something like this,
Yeah.
to blast off. Be patient and understand you are there for the student, you know?
So that's one of your general skills, that you're a patient person. But is there anything else in terms of tools that you like to use that maybe not other teachers would use?
Yes, I try to implement some aspects of my all everyday life. I like to produce music. So while I was producing and still teaching, I thought to myself, why not put the gear I use to make music and try to implement it into my classroom? So I came up with a way to use a digital audio workstation. I use Ableton Live and I have a controller, the push for it. And with this, the audio training becomes much more advanced, much more interesting also to the students because they see you using that gear and it shines with all its lights and stuff. It's not this boring CD player, you put the CD in, it doesn't sound good. So as a teacher, I found out that audio training is not very much focused on. They all pay attention to the book and the lessons that are in there and they follow the lessons. You need to step outside the box, you think outside the box. You implement new ways, you implement new technology, you try to reach the students with that. And so far, I have made good experiences with it, and I like to continue it.
And so, you know, it's been really great learning about your, you know, your approach to teaching language and, you know, some of the principles that you've used. But what would you advise someone who wants to learn a language? We've talked, you know, obviously finding the motivation, things of that nature. But do you have any other advice that you would offer students who are wanting to learn a foreign language?
Apart from the strategies I just told you, I mean, you don't have to really start to learn two languages at once or something like this. But really don't fall for the people who try to use the marketing as you will learn it so fast and with no work. It's really not the truth. You need to do some work and you really need to put some focus in it. And it doesn't have to be exaggerated, but obviously a lot of my students are working, so they're learning a language after their work. Simply put it in your mind that 1 hour a day will really help you much more than thinking that I'm gonna learn it so easy with this book and that book. You know, how many books have you seen and who are called "Learn Russian in 4 weeks," "Learn Chinese in 1 month," "Learn English in 2 days"? And you know, it's simply not the truth. You need patience and you need dedication, and of course, you will need to work.
Very nice. Yeah.
I agree. I was just going to say that I think that obviously if you could spend an hour a day, that's wonderful. But I think even 15 or 20 minutes a day, every day, it's that sort of that small continuous progress that you make makes all the difference. And sometimes it can be daunting to feel like I need to spend an hour every day, or I've got class twice a week and it's 2 or 3 hours in the evening after work. That's almost too much for some people, and then they end up, I think, losing motivation, and they end up losing that sort of forward progress. And so sometimes just keeping it to a more manageable amount of time, but doing it on a daily basis can be helpful.
I couldn't agree more. Slowly but steady wins the race.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Rico, we should cover?
Well, yeah, I just, you know, I mean, obviously, Lazarus, you're clearly, you know, a polyglot, probably a polymath as well. But are there other fun facts about yourself? I mean, you know, this is about highlighting you as a teacher on the Learneezee platform, but, you know, can tell us what's something that's interesting or fun about you as a person, not just the teacher?
I can tell you this much without wanting to toot my own horn too much, but so far the receptions that I got from my students, you know, I was surprised by myself when I really started to go to schools. Whenever I was a supplement teacher for someone who was ill, and I filled in for him, whenever I was doing that, all the students came back and were like, when you will be with us again, why did you come with us? Why you are not staying with us? So I don't know. I would say I'm more easygoing than some old-fashioned teachers, and I try to look to the students as people, not just as the clear student that, all right, he needs to learn page 1 to 10 in 1 week. So that's my only focus. I'm also interested in the people and what they're doing. And I think I have a sensitive amount of feeling for people and for their stuff, you know.
Yeah, but you kind of are trying to hide the fact that you're a rapper, or is
Ah,
that?
no, I don't try to hide it. You know, it's nothing that I bring up in school so much so that I'm telling, hey, I'm rapping and I'm doing this and that. But I think it helps me myself, for example, to I have fun fact. I have a lot of students who come from the Musikhochschule in Freiburg.
Cool.
You know, they're imported as because the Germans have become kind of lazy in learning instruments or type of things. So they get a lot of people from Asia over
Okay.
to learn the thing. So there, maybe with these students, I won't obviously tell them that I'm rapping, but I'm gonna put in the music production that I'm doing and
Cool.
talk about them. So this will give them like, oh, he understands what I'm talking about, you know.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. That's a fun fact. We got a
And
rapper as a teacher.
And so
it
just
really,
the last question we have for you, Lazaros,
Yeah.
is where can potential students find you? You know, if people who are listening to this podcast or video cast, you know, happen upon this episode and they want to work with you directly, how can they find you?
of course, they can find me over learneezee.com,
Mhm,
but they also can send me an email at l.keskinidis@hotmail.de.
mhm,
There they can talk to me if they want some advice or some courses. We can talk it over. And I'm working on a YouTube page and on a homepage about right now. It's not done yet, so once it's finalized, maybe I have an update for you to come to tell you where to find me. But via email, you should be good. If you really want to get in touch with me, send me an email. I will respond. We can talk it out.
All right. Sounds
Well, thank
great.
you very much, Lazaros. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you as a language teacher and coach and musician. And we really want to wish you all the best. I know these times are difficult, but thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to come on to our show. And we look forward to touching base with you again very, very soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was really nice. And go over to learneezee.com and we get in touch. It's really no biggie.
Oh, awesome. All right. Thank you, Lazarus, again. Okay.
Great, thanks a lot.
Okay. I'm gonna stop the recording now. Ciao, ciao.
Okay, see you.
Welcome back from the interview. And I hope everybody enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about Lazaros Keskinidis. Certainly a very talented person. I almost feel like he's kind of a polymath, a lot of interests, multilingual, musician, very talented gentleman. So, you know, if you want to connect with him, we'll definitely make that possible. But we hope
Yes.
you've enjoyed the 8th episode of Learneezee.
Yep.
And we look forward to seeing you in future episodes and having more guests on the show.
Yeah, and don't forget you can take courses of Lazaros through learneezee.com, and hopefully we'll also link to his future website when he gets it done. Okay, so keep learning easy, and I'll see you next time. All right, ciao, Rico.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao. Okay.